Yes, it will start now.
Perfect. Welcome to the second session of day 3 of the 20th CI Design Summit. The session, Design and Digital Transformation, will highlight the critical role of design in the field of technology, including futuristic project design, advanced software, and design thinking to help designers and user organizations achieve a competitive advantage. The session will be moderated by Mr. Sudhindra V, Chief Design Officer, IBM India. Sudhindra is a recognized thought leader in design thinking, service design, brand experience design, and human-centered design. He is regularly seen sharing his thoughts over articles or as speakers in conferences to startups as an advisor. He has authored the book Design Chronicles, Design is an Attitude, and in the field for over 19 years, he has been recognized for his work through more than 14 international awards, including Most Innovative Product by National Infocom Awards in Singapore, a Blue Elephant at Curious, and Category Best in Interactive Media Awards and Internet Advertising Awards. Our panelists are Mr. Karthik M, Industry Manager Manufacturing at Autodesk India. As an Industry Strategy Manager for Manufacturing, Mr. Karthik serves as a key member of Autodesk's business strategy and marketing team. He is responsible for developing and driving new opportunities and initiatives for the manufacturing industry. This role helps him to enhance his industry, business, and analytical expertise to support go-to-market strategies for Autodesk in the Indian design and manufacturing market. Our next panelist is Mr. Manish Shah, Executive VP, Digital Channels at Kotak Mahindra Bank. Mr. Shah is part of the core team that drives Kotak Mahindra Bank's digital-first banking strategy and leads the team that manages the bank's digital channel initiatives across mobile, internet, and conversational banking. During his time at Kotak, Manish has led the implementation of key banking digital initiatives related to Kotak mobile banking app, internet banking, and conversational banking, including the launch of the AI-powered Kia chatbot and WhatsApp banking. He has over 2 decades of experience in the digital and financial services sector. Our next panelist is Mr. Jay Datta. He is the Senior VP of Experience Design for Make My Trip and Go by Ibugo. Mr. Datta has journeyed across multiple specializations within design, worked across geos, built teams, products, and brands, influencing both organization culture and bottom lines. Jay has shared his journey, insights, and learning at TEDx, Adobe Max, Collision, and multiple conferences, events across India, Asia, and US. In his current role as the Senior VP of UX, Mr. Datta leads the Experience Design Charter for a new expanded Make My Trip group, including Go IBO. He volunteered as the design lead for Arogya Setu app by the Government of India. Finally, our final panelist is Mr. Ramanujan Thirumalai, Senior Vice President, NIIT. Mr. Ramanujan is the Head of Learning Solutions and Product Engineering, StackRoot at NIT Incubated Academy. He leads the design and delivery of outcome-driven learning solutions on digital tech to produce full-stack and tech professionals with deep skills. He has been with the NIIT group for over 29 years across various companies. With this, I request Mr. Sudhindra to take the session forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you so much. Firstly, it is my privilege and an honor to share the stage with all such esteemed guests. Thanks for having me over for this. The CII India Design Summit is a special one, and even more special this year. So it sort of wraps up the whole of those conferences, all of that happens in India, into one nice crystallized format. And the kind of visibility it gets from the government is amazing. So I'm so glad to be part of that journey that CII has put together. This time it's even more special because a lot more people can, join in because of COVID. So with that, what I want to do is welcome the panelists. I'll share a few thoughts around the design, the role of design in digital transformation, as seen in the lens of a large technology giant and the services organization IBM. And we will have the other panelists share the same, their points of view around digital transformation, and then we will jump right into a panel format of discussions. So with that, let me share my screen. Give me just a second.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, okay. So there is a joke nowadays, that mankind's two most asked questions. Can you see my screen and can you hear me? So yes, great. Thank you. So I'm sharing a few thoughts around the role of design in digital transformation, and the way the digital transformation became such a big deal is because the moment the customer experience became such a complicated affair in organizations. So then the people realized that digital is playing such an important role, and it is important for us to take it and control it. So I've been doing this for a while now. I'm the Chief Design Officer for IBM iX in India, and I believe that design is the vehicle through which we can make the world a lot more responsible, a lot more empathic. So IBM's journey in design itself started long ago. It's a pretty inspirational one. In 1966, when Thomas Watson Jr., the visionary leader of IBM, proclaimed that good design is good business. And he wasn't sharing it with his friends. He was actually writing a memo to the company to say that we need to have a conscious, active design program. Since then, IBM has made huge strides in it. And much more recently, we have stabilized on the enterprise design thinking that we have now used for everything that we do. It's the framework that guides all the stuff that we do, and it is at the heart of every initiative that we put out there, the core transformation that we do within organizations, be it in HR, be it in learning, anywhere else too. IBM iX, which I represent, is the services arm of IBM. And what we have is the enterprise design thinking has transformed or evolved into what we call as business design. We enable large businesses to become more human-centered and also value-centered, value-driven, and how to see how an enterprise is experienced in the world. Because we believe that the enterprise is not a separate identity or an entity that is all about making money. It's a part of society, it's a part of communities, and it is also a part of the markets. And what is the role that they play is where business design comes in. So it's human-centered and value-driven at the same time. We believe that the most important thing for us to achieve customer experience, again, the digital transformation part that we spoke about, is through enterprise experience. That's the route to take to enable all of the entire enterprise with the right kind of strategy and right kind of design-led strategy and experiences, which in turn will create the right kind of customer experience. I can give you an example. About a year ago, I was I was leading this whole initiative for a large hospitality client of ours. It's a world-known large one, hospitality one. They had introduced a fantastic guest experience for their guests, in which you could use your mobile app to open rooms very easily. You could check in, you could pay your bills, you could even customize your orders. For example, if I want vegetarian, if I want hot water at any point in time, whatever it is. So you could just use that for your guest experience. It is amazing, right? It's great customer experience. But what was behind the scenes, the frontline associates that were there manning the reception, they had a huge struggle to meet these experiences because they had to struggle with three to four different systems put everything together and then make sense, choreograph all of them at one point. And then, there is so much of a chance of human error when you do that, especially when you are in the check-in counter and people walk in at any time of the day. At that time, managing all of these things while the guest is expecting a 1 minute check-in and opening the room key with his mobile app. It is a completely an experience that does not have the same kind of resonance between the employees and the customers. So that's what I'm talking about. We cannot have that anymore. If the frontline associates are empowered, they are automatically going to give a better customer experience eventually. We did the survey with 1,000+ executives across the world, and what we saw was very interesting. We saw that those companies where their brand vision, where their organization vision, when they aligned, when the customer experience, the enterprise experience, when they all aligned, they had more chances of success. For example, as you can see with numbers out here, those where there was a golden thread, we call it the golden thread, where the customer experience and employee experiences, enterprise experiences are well aligned, they outperformed their competition. They outperformed their peers in terms of profitability. They became more innovative. Their customer satisfaction ratings were, through the roof. Those companies that had that vision, and even the business strategy, policies, and all of that, right? So when you align all of them, that's when we have seen that, as you can see here, even in selecting partners and suppliers, when you do all of that is when you can truly say that you are a organization that is making a difference. But how do you deliver a superior CX? How do you deliver the real benefits for customer experiences through the enterprise experiences? We have a couple of things that we came about. One of them is, of course, creating a culture of customer centricity. It's not enough to have one customer service team and renaming it to customer experience team. That's not enough. You got to have the entire organization to be customer centered. And that's what we are seeing today. If you look at a contact center today, it is not about providing support on phone. It's about being the experience hub of the organization. It's about all of those silos that we know of today to be able to be customer centered. Enterprise agility becomes very important. Human-centered design practices and curiosity are the hallmarks of a company which has a culture of customer centricity. And the second one, probably even more important, is to enable employees with great experiences. If you walk to McDonald's and you have a fantastic Bollywood music coming in, you're nicely hungry, your kids are happy because it's McDonald's and so on. But if the employee in front of you who is delivering the food for you, if he is a grumpy little man, you are not going to be very happy with it, isn't it? So that's the same thing. You've got to enable the employees with great experiences so that they increase their accountability, productivity, but also feel responsible. Prioritize digital innovation for employees. I have been in so many conversations where I've been told that, this is for the employees. So it is a last preference for us. Let's make sure what customers see, make sure that is designed really well. I have been part of it. I'm sure a lot of us have been part of that. So it's not okay anymore. And most importantly, communicate authentically, align all of your brand communication, marketing strategy, sales strategy, all of it towards one enterprise experience. When you do that is what we believe in IBM is where you can make a difference for our clients and for the markets as well as the society at large. So that is what I wanted to share with all of you. Thanks for listening in. And if there are any questions, please keep posting. But with this, I'd like to invite Karthik from Autodesk to hear, what's going on in the manufacturing industry. Over a period of the next few minutes, you will hear various stories around how digital has changed the game in banking, in learning, even in very large scale applications of design. So I'll invite you to hear out our esteemed speakers. With that, let me invite Karthik to share your thoughts around Autodesk. Karthik from Autodesk.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Karthik Manivachagam. I work as the industry manager in Autodesk. For people who are not familiar with Autodesk, we provide design tools for people facing challenges, engineering challenges every day. We help people design and make anything from skyscrapers to cars or bridges and blockbusters. Typically, in the design world and help how people can visualize it in the physical world. Having said that, we are not new to automation. In fact, we have been in the automation business for the last 35 years, and we are not paranoid or worried about automation taking away jobs. Rather, we are optimistic in Autodesk about where we can take automation, where we can work together. And concerning the design and manufacturing industry in India as such, we have a diverse industry with several companies spread across different sectors, each manufacturing different range of products and services. But in spite all of these differences, they all have some of these common stages. Typically, there are two commonalities. One, all of these companies are focused on how do you make better products, how do you sell more, how do you generate greater profits. Secondly, they almost have a typical linear product cycle, which I'll explain to you very quickly. When we talk about a product life cycle development, it all starts with a concept. Something like somebody in an organization has a market requirement or a need that forms the basis of this concept. The concept will most likely meet the large requirement, and it is then turned into a viable product. And then somebody in the organization will take that and go into a design phase. Typically, the design and engineering teams work on turning it into a product of some scale, but they are constrained by the current manufacturing capabilities within that organization. Then it goes into the manufacturing part, where the company's target is to produce and find customers who are willing to pay an attractive price for the product, as well as generate profit. It then goes into a selling mode, where the point is to develop a unique customer relationship, and finally it goes into an operate and retire mode, the product, how it is used, how it is being repaired, and how it is retired. So there are companies which typically manage this entire linear process on their own, and there are some companies which only do a part of it. But they do it in-house, or they outsource it part of it. But typically, this is the linear approach that most of these companies follow. This is like a traditional approach and a typical approach which design and manufacturing companies today follow. Some of your companies typically could be following this process. We are all well aware that the world is getting digital and connected, and most of our customers face unprecedented levels of globalization, complexity, and competition, which is making it very hard for them to do their business like never before. At the same time, these challenges are throwing up enough opportunities which never existed before. So companies will have to adapt to the new way of design and manufacturing their products, so that they can start looking at the value that is coming out of the product that they are producing. Typically, when we see in companies, they're looking for some specific technologies. Lately, you see a lot of talk about advanced manufacturing technologies. Typically, companies look at these specific technologies to see if they can drop in on those linear processes that I've shown here, and see how they can improve their productivity in the process. But productivity alone is not going to help them. This is not going to be the one golden key, because firstly, this is not going to help in bringing any sustainable long-term difference, because when we focus on productivity, cost and risk in any process can be removed, but this doesn't alter the fundamental way that we do business, which is about developing and selling products of a fixed product value. The value that is there, which is very fixed. We don't have any extra value that is coming out there. So the fundamental nature of the business, that is developing and selling products, is undergoing this change. So what we tend to do is, look at, some key capabilities. What are the key capabilities stages where transform this entire typical linear cycle into something more agile and iterative. So let's look at these capabilities one by one very quickly. Mass customization, where you're looking at the ability to shift from the best fit approach to a customized individualized approach, where you are targeting specific customers and segments. We're also looking at collaboration ability, where you're talking of a siloed approach is being changed by a collaborative approach where all the stakeholders, suppliers, distributors, they all collaborate well ahead in time and identify issues which are there, which can be replaced very quickly. We are also looking at a capability called flexible manufacturing, which is more about combining the approaches of additive and subtractive manufacturing and looking at some flexible ways of producing the product which gives the customer the best experience. And when we talk of customer experience, we all are aware that this is the magic mantra that companies are looking at right now. Just now, as Sudhindra explained, this is the very critical key. Right from a buy-sell relationship, we are moving to an era of having that unique customer experience, so that beyond the point of sale, the customer carries away with him the brand and the strategy or the strategic experience in a whole. And when we talk of smart services, we are trying to put data at the center of everything. When I say data, it is, which can be used to create an unique experience both for internal and external customers. And this is like a precursor, I would say, to many things like IoT. But fundamentally, even before we get into an IoT, I think smart services where data is the center of everything is going to be the key for that kind of servitization. So what we are trying to do here is, looking at all these aspects to see if we can form a collaborative approach to the entire, traditional product lifecycle, where we are changing that into a more iterative process. So we are trying to help companies understand how they can bring in value from the products they produce. As data is the center of everything, imagine if we take that data and put it right again into the process in the beginning. What we then have is, a shift from a traditional linear fixed waterfall development approach to a more agile and iterative development process. And this is what in Autodesk we call it as a digital strategy template. So any company who is planning or which is planning to enter that digital journey, especially the MSMEs in India, which constitute nearly 75% of the manufacturing industry, they need to fundamentally ask three questions. Basically, where are we today? Where do we intend to go? And what is stopping us from getting there? I think if they take this template and answer those fundamental three questions, I think they can make their own digital strategy. In Autodesk, we have this digital strategy as a workshop for the member companies, as well as a survey assessment. We can do it in both the formats, where typically the digital strategy assessment the survey takes a half-day approach. It takes around a few minutes, like 23 minutes to complete around 4 questions. Then we also have this innovation workshop, which takes again a half-day approach, where we help companies address those questions, identify gaps where they are in the digital journey. What are those 5 key capabilities which I've just showed? Where are they in that journey? What is that they need to do? And what is that is stopping them in that journey? And they get a personalized report after completing the assessment, which will then help plan the digital journey better. And we also, as I said, we do these innovation workshops. If you need any more information on these, you're welcome to reach out to us. And I'll be happy to take you through the entire process. So this is my presentation today. And if you have any questions, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Karthik. That was quite enlightening. May I now invite Mr. Manish to share his points of view on the digital side of things in his own role.
Okay. Hi. Thanks, everyone, to really feeling privileged to come to this event. Honestly, when I was called for this meeting, I was slightly skeptical that why I've been called here. All you veterans who have lived and breathed the design part, the design thinking. Why Banker has been called? Is it to actually maybe pull my legs, saying that you guys banker maybe never thought of customers or design. However, when I was thinking about the last Monday, from maybe 99 when I was a dot-comer, from those days to when I have worked in 2-3 large corporates, what I'm seeing is a very happy change, I think, in a BFSI sector. But I have seen that the all new age opportunities, which is about mobility, everything is anywhere, anytime. The mobile speeds have gone up from 1G, 2G to 4Gs and 5Gs. The video-based conversations are happening now. I think it is fundamentally changing the way customers are experiencing banking or the way they expect to experience banking. And I think it is making a business case to bank like Kotak Mahindra Bank also to build a new business model around it. So I feel typically, if you ask me, banking, the fundamental issue, if you see from other places, banking is slightly more complicated. It is more regulatory in nature. Every customer has very different needs from banking. And finally, it is only about money. In the end, the both sides wants to maybe, I have maybe highest margin at the lowest cost, right? So there's a customer of the bank, right? So somewhere bankers always had a very, I'll say, product-centric approach, I'll say margin-centric approach, push-centric processes and culture, right? And that's where normally banking was defined. I feel now, not only our bank, I have seen banking at large is slowly becoming a customer-centric, experience-centric, not push but a nudge-centric organization, okay? And where we are looking at an ecosystem and a business model and not think of bank as a still-owned entity who's doing things for the customer, right? I feel that's the big change happening. Now, why the change happening? For two reasons. As I said, your personal life has changed. Everything is happening on mobile, everything is remotely, okay? And earlier, I'll say a typical middle-class customer never used to a great experience, okay? For him, earlier days, I'll say 20 years back, great experience means costly. Great experience means something is wrong. Okay, you go to a nice restaurant outside your bus station, looking very jazzy, very nicely done. You'll be scared. कि यार महंगा होगा इसलिए अच्छी सर्विस मिल रही है, right? Normally, that's behavior we all used to have it, right? I think today's has changed, right? The way we start to use technology, whether it is a train ticket booking or on phone Google Maps, the way you can use WhatsApp, right? So for example, Zoom is not from the big daddies in the market, right? All other big internet partners in the world have a product which is very similar to Zoom, right? But today, hand on to ask anybody, most of us will prefer a Zoom as a product to use. Maybe I will pay for it instead of using a free product from maybe some other big giants, right? I feel personally in personal life, customers start to understand what does a great experience means. Second is because slowly the lot of technology has moved away from a human interaction, right? It has moved toward machine and a man. That's where the great experience process starts to matter a lot. See, banking, if you see, is always very conversational. It's always very one-to-one. I have any work, I have any problem, any query, I'll talk to a human. Either I'll walk into branch, talk to the branch person. I'm HNI, I may have a relationship manager, I'll talk to that guy. Or I'll pick up the phone and talk to a person, right? Typically, it's all about talking to a human and they will convert into banking language, give you typically that this is the form to sign and your work will get done, right? Now, when people start to move to earlier ATMs, then website, now mobile app, right? You're required to think through that. Are we giving customers what they're looking at? Because of technology, it become easy for customers to switch from one bank to another bank also, right? Now, I'll say this is the fundamental change which has started to make banks look at how can things happen online. And I think in India, the opportunity was, I think the government and regulator has been quite, I'll say, visionary. They have done things like NPCI, what they have done in India, like that is a IMPS or UPI or AEPS or ATM switch, I think. Those have been game changers. A lot of places, I think in India, the regulatory framework becomes so friendly. Bank like us can build innovation on top of it. And start to think, how can I look at the bank in a very, very different way, right? I'll give an example. Maybe 9 years back, when we're building our mobile banking app for the smartphones, and that's the time I had joined them, we started to look at the key customer stories or use cases in the mobile app, right? Obviously, one thing comes always, people just want to know their balance, right? They want to just know how much money in my account, have I received the money, have I spent the money and how much is left, right? Now, second bigger use case comes is what is about making a payment to someone. In those days, that used to be the holy grail of any mobile banking app. If I can very easily, smoothly, securely transfer money to someone, that was a wow experience. And I thought, can we innovate around it, right? It's a very difficult thing. It's the most complicated, sensitive thing to handle in a mobile banking app, right? Now, when I spoke to customers, looked at other banks' behavior or even online banking behavior, people thought that is very, very cumbersome process. Typically, it's much easier for me to go to ATM, withdraw the cash, give to other guy, the end of the story, right? What you normally make me is add a beneficiary by some 7 details, activate the beneficiary, maybe wait for it to maybe cooling period get over, then make a transfer, and then maybe delete the beneficiary, right? It's a very long, complicated journey. And average customers will be too overwhelmed by it, right? Now, when we start to look at how do I innovate this area, the first thing we start to think about it, why need to add a beneficiary? Why need to add and wait for a beneficiary? Normally, typically, it's from a risk perspective, right? And where you have cooling period. Now, what we challenge is, what if I reduce the limit is given for a fund transfer? Can I do with the beneficiary activation and cooling period kind of thing, right? And luckily that time when NPCI has come with a product called IMPS P2P, where you can just use an MMID and mobile number. I don't know how many people still use it or even aware about it. There was a process which they launched that time, which was just put a mobile number and MMID of an account, you could do a transfer. We build on top of it. We went back to our tech team saying that, hey, why can't a customer just enter IFSC and account number and payment happens, right? Is there technically any problem? It was never done earlier, but our tech team suggests possible to do it, right? And that's why we launched a feature called one-time fund transfer and mobile banking app. And today, where you could just go to the page, put a IFSC and account number of the customer, and payment can happen immediately. When we launched, it was more NEFT based. Luckily, IMPS P2A become launched and available to every bank very, very within a year. With that, it became a 24/7, right? When 2 o'clock in the night, I want to pay somebody $1,000, I can just put the IFSC account number, payment happens. That become hero feature. And we start to see around 2/3 of our payment is to happen. Now people said, great, amazing, I love it, that. But we need a ability to send somebody a proof that we have made a payment, right? And then we have given a share icon where you can transfer it to email or WhatsApp, you can share the receipt of the payment. People loved it. Now they said, yeah, this is very great, but what a time. I know the account number, and but IFSC is very tough for me to answer. A lot of people just don't give me IFSC. Okay, they give me my branch name or bank name, right? Now when we did it back and check with our CMS team, I realized most of the banks slowly the IFSC became redundant. You need not enter a specific IFSC for a specific branch, right? Because 20 years back, typically the combination of a IFSC and the account number used to be unique in a bank, right? Slowly, after core banking implemented in every bank, in most of the banks, your account number is unique, right? Slowly, in a lot of banks, if you just enter any... Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay, sorry. So point I was saying was, if you then we realized lots of banks offer something called generic IFSC as an approach. So we build an approach where you need not even enter for top banks a specific branch level IFSC. Just enter the pick up the bank. We'll pick up an IFSC in the back end, and you can make a payment. So tomorrow, if you tell me I want to get payment to XYZ Bank, Sister Bank of India, you not even give me the IFSC. I can make a transfer. So that became again much easy. Then when people came back, sometime I don't even IFSC other guy. I don't even account number of the other guy, right? How do I make transfer? So obviously very difficult. If I don't know account number of the beneficiary, making payment is not very easy. But we still worked on it. We built some what we call hashtag based banking, where you could do online payment to customer. We build social media based banking. We allowed customers to make a payment without the account number also. And with that, customer did not enter the account number. The last week, in fact, was not very successful. So we had to fail fast and stop that feature also, because while people liked it as a cool idea, mostly people are happy to enter the account number and IFSC and a payment happens, right? And then still now, the one thing people love in the Kotak mobile banking app is this feature. Now, why I give the example is, now I feel this is the, and obviously we have to work with the UI team to build a great UI around it so that people love it and they find it very easy to use it. It's important in banks to look at end-to-end journey of the customer, find out which are the things which I question and challenge and make it easy for customer to use. And that's where customers start to use it. So I will say, maybe just wanted to give that one example, which I think slowly what we realize with this, we could see that our banking can also make a difference in customers' life. If you make things easy, customers start to use the channel more and more. And with that, their engagement goes up. And today, that's why Kotak Mobile Banking app is one of the highest rated app if you go to the iOS store. And we see really great new use story slowly become a culture now, where because the mobile app is used so much, we are picking up next level of customers' problems and automating it so that customer keeps on getting a better and better experience on the app.
Thank you, Mr. Manish. Thanks a lot. And bankers are always welcome everywhere anyway. So, so thanks for sharing your thoughts. Can I now invite Jay Datta to share his experiences on the digital side of things? Jay, great to see you. Please take it over.
Same here. Great to see you too, and been great hearing your stories from multiple different sort of angles. Let me quickly share my story. It's not for the organization that I work, so none of that kind of really. It's for something which I'm sure many of you would have downloaded on your phone. I think it probably lives on at least a third of a billion people's pockets, I'm pretty sure. So without much further ado, let me share this one. Again, as Sudhindra mentioned, the most heard and seen. Can you see my screen? And I'm sure you can see. Going full screen on this. So I think I wear many hats, but the hat that I'm going to talk about today is as a volunteer design lead for a Government of India initiative called Arogya Setu. Arogya Setu is a contact tracing app. I'm sure you heard many things about that. Of course, some controversial, some interesting, some records broken. There's a bunch of things there. So yeah, the world is temporarily closed. I mean, partly open, let's put it that way right now. And we were in the middle of that in March. I like to say, usually this is my usual opening line, that a bunch of people walk not into a bar, but into a pandemic. And the set of people who sat across the table, a virtual table every day, trying to steer the road that Arogya Setu would take had such a diversity. We had people from ICMR, we had people from the PMO, Niti Aayog, bureaucrats, my.gov, a whole bunch of people, very well-meaning people. We had privacy activists, we had lawyers, we had ex-Google heads, we had people who were data scientists. I think very interesting combination. And I'll just tell you a very brief walkthrough of the story of how it got started. So I think the first thing in the pandemic, everyone realized as we were thrust into it, nothing to do with kind of taking it on voluntarily, was that we were in the middle of pandemic, like it or not, and we were going to get deeper and deeper. Interestingly, the first things that you saw on Twitter, on other social media platforms, were things like this. This on the right, what you see is a patient flow chart. Essentially, someone who had COVID has been visiting places. They've been trying to manually think about all the places that the person would have visited and telling people, where you here at this particular place between this and this time. Now, imagine the amount. I mean, that guy has to be on Twitter. That person has to remember that he or she was there. I think the manual contact tracing, which is very critical in early phases, is absolutely critical and crazily sort of difficult in the early stages of COVID. So yeah, I mean, we realized it's not silver bullet, but we thought there is a way to maybe make this, use technology to allow for contact tracing. So I think what we ended up with was something very new. I mean, I worked very closely with a bunch of engineers. Some of the first questions we asked were around ethics and privacy and the philosophy of the whole thing, and does it even make sense? And I think somewhere you feel that even if it saves 100 lives, if it contributes to getting the government, getting the doctors, the medicos prepared for an eventuality kind of which may just spiral out of control, and they probably get in control thanks to this app, then it's probably worth some of it. And again, a lot of different sort of privacy issues were built in right from scratch. That's another story. We can go back into that sometime later. The other interesting part was, these are the three challenges. One is it's a very different mental model. It's not like buying things. I mean, people buy things or people kind of unlock rooms. It's not. In some ways, it's a life and death situation. It's not banking. It's not buying things from Flipkart. It's not buying things from Amazon. None of that. It's a mental model which no one else says, what do I do with this app? Okay, it tells me this is, I'm safe, I'm good, or I'm not safe. Now what? And this is a mental model which no one ever has dealt with. I mean, it's a pandemic that no one ever has dealt with. So I think this was for us a very, very critical aspect of it. So how do we make sure people get this very new idea, this very new concept? I mean, most people didn't hear about contract tracing till then. The second one was to uncomplicate, because if you work with epidemiologists, if you work with the people who are in the medical sector, now, you remember they will throw some complex names because for them, one particular thing describes a whole set of different symptoms, problems, etc. Now, when you think about it's for the masses, at least if I can get it to a third of India's billion population or a quarter of it, I think after the first 10, 15, 20 million, even in the first 10, 15 million, you may be able to lose them. I mean, what are you talking about? What do you mean? But this is a probability. What is a probability? I think it's a very complicated idea or a set of ideas which you need to uncomplicate, because Arogya Setu is not something which is saying with certainty that you are safe or you're not safe. It's saying there's a greater probability, there's a greater chance that you are safe, or there's a chance you came in contact and the chances are that you came in contact very close. So just check, make sure you isolate, make sure. So I think simple ideas, but there are a lot of ifs and buts also kind of. And remember, it's technology, it's not magic. It's not kind of like one silver bullet out there. Mass adoption also in this uncomplicated process meant that you would have to have translate this into 10 plus languages. But that's not the only challenge. The third challenge was speed, because we were in the backdrop of a pandemic and we don't know. I mean, think about this in March, before the lockdown was going to happen and we were not even aware of it. We were working day in, day out. There were just 2 weeks which had just gone into it. Third week, there were so many people involved. The IITs kind of pitched in. They did a lot of user testing. There were a lot of private players who did a lot of user testing. I think the government kind of did user testing. It was crazy because we had to get it out of the door. We had to get it out fast because speed was of critical importance. Now, think about it. It's a new mental model. It's to uncomplicate complex sort of terms and terminologies and ifs and buts and probabilities and all of that. And you are going at speed, breakneck speed. You are learning every day. There was this instance where people took this self-assessment in the constituency of a very, very well-known politician. And I think we kind of realized that a lot of people were just playing around because that's a mental model they're familiar with. You go to YouTube, you play videos. What do I do with this app? After this is done, what do I do next? We built in friction to a lot of things, which is very unusual. You never built friction. I think all speakers have probably talked about getting a user from A to Z as quickly as possible. Here, you want to make the user pause, make her or make him think, talk to him in her or his language, which may be Hindi, and the Hindi cannot be a Shuddha Hindi. It has to be a more dialectical, more everyday sort of a language. We have to get it out. We learn every day. We take decisions every day, and we get it out every day. The other very interesting fact, the moment you think of governments, you think they're slow. They kind of drag their feet. The bureaucrats slow everything down. My experience on this was just the opposite. Of course, there were a lot of specialists also on board. But I think it was amazing the speed at which we kind of went. The first release in 3 weeks. The second release in about 4 days, we changed the structure overall because the PM, and I don't mean product manager, I mean the Prime Minister, had a look and he was again talking about something that we had in mind. India, people don't read a lot. Can we make it more visual as well? So I think things like that, we kind of experimented, we moved very, very fast. And remember that it has to move very, very quickly as well. We did user research, very funnily, through remote user research, a lot of it, people in Darbhanga, people in Odisha, people everywhere kind of trying to, and a lot of people said that, I get it, but iske baad mein kya karu? Part of it was to then involve my.gov, and we had actually a lot of videos on that. This is probably the first thing that you saw. I mean, multiple languages, you could kind of look through it. If you look at the very right screen, I think it's a very verbose screen. That's what we launched with. We realized, I think, things like timely intervention, and a lot of like very kind of academic words. I think there are a lot of academic words that as you go down, and a lot of kind of, if this happens, but that can be the probability. What you saw next, of course, this is the self-assessment, which was very, very useful, because what we saw was one aspect of Arogya Setu. On the back end, there was a lot of service angles to it. If I'm seeing in a particular constituency, the number of cases are increasing. I think data scientists, when they pulled the data from Arogya Setu, could safely predict that this is going to be the next hotspots. I'm sure you heard the next hotspot business as well. I mean, there were hotspots and there were like things which were developing into hotspot, etc. A lot of useful data like that came from places like Arogya Setu, combined with the knowledge of epidemiologists, combined with data scientists. So there is a lot of layers. And I think being there day in, day out, Monday to Sunday and back again, I think it was an unbelievable ringside view on those early days of the epidemic spreading, kind of overall, the pandemic spreading. It's not an epidemic anymore. Sort of great learnings. And I think design being a facilitator there to help people access, like the third screen, which you see, which is where we put in the videos. And a lot of videos are also talking about, early on, people were like, oh my God, this guy's got COVID, so we should get him out of the building or, apartment, you cannot live here, etc. Social stigma attached to it. Can we counter it with communication? People like watching videos. Can we actually use? We did a whole set of videos on making masks at home in case you are not the type who can buy masks or you don't have a sewing machine. What do you do? How do you make a mask? So I think we thought a lot about people for whom social distancing may not make sense. For you and me, it makes sense when we have enough rooms in the houses, probably. But what about people who live in a 10-foot by 10-foot room? What about people who don't have running water? So I think these videos, a lot of these came from NGOs, a lot of these came from government bodies, from associations. I think they were really useful on that scale. The one which probably became the most useful feature was this, what's happening in the radius. Yeah, we have made it better, easier, jazzier, all of that we could have. But the fact there was a functional part to it. And I think I remember this feature developed over a course of 48 hours, very often in conversations over lunch, kind of saying, but this is, and everyone is remote, by the way. This is what it can do. So I can do this, is what the tech guy is saying. The privacy guy is saying you cannot do it pinpointed beyond less than 2 kilometers, because what if there's a social stigma, there's a whole bunch of things around it. So I think the fact that everyone comes together, that everyone is putting on their hats, we actually rejected more ideas than we took or put it in here. So I think in some ways it was a lot of give and take and push and pull. We wanted people to come and see, and at the same time, beyond a point, it's not entertainment, it's not buying things, it's nothing. You just look, get reassured, and move on. So I think this was the other part, was putting in so much effort, knowing that this is a temporary app. I mean, beyond a point of time, it will have no purpose. It'll stop being used, and hopefully the earlier it gets stopped being used, the better it is. It means the pandemic has ended. Interestingly, we ended up designing an entire ecosystem, a design system for this, so that, because I was a volunteer for some time and there were a bunch of designers working with me, there are a lot of people who volunteered, like researchers volunteered, there were the illustrators who volunteered. They came and they said, we'll do it for you. What do you need? Can we help you with something? So it was very important that we still have it in one unified language, spoken one unified voice across so many different languages. So this is the what you see out of it. That's where we are at. I think at a certain point, I stopped working and then handed it over to the government. And again, that was the other part of it. The people would have to take it forward, hopefully not for long. But that's probably the story of Arogya Setu. Happy to answer any questions that you have. I think the idea here is that sometimes in your life, you have to embrace uncertainty at a massive scale. What tools do you have to make the most of it? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that great story. And I think the uncertainty has been so much certain in these times than ever before. So thanks for sharing that, Jay. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions for it. But let me call on Ram to share in the next 5 minutes his thoughts around what's going on in NIIT and how the learning outcomes are being achieved through the digital transformation vehicle. Ram, over to you.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's an honor and pleasure to be part of this panel discussion. An esteemed team with such a wide variety of experience. I will do my 2 cents worth and explain what we have tried to do at NIT. Of course, NIT is the same NIT that's been there for the last close to 39 plus years. Played a key role in the scaling of resources from a talent transformation perspective for many years. So I am part of a new design setup initiative on designing learning products to drive the outcomes. So I'll just talk about that over the next few minutes. Is my screen visible? I might need it as I move forward.
Not yet.
You have the presenter right, so whenever you want, you can share.
Yeah. It's coming up. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So what I will. It got interrupted. Sorry. Can you tell me what you are seeing on the screen?
It's yeah. Now we can see empowering high performance technology teams.
Yeah. So around in 2015, we know that the training's been going on. Most of the trainings are happy. The trainer is happy. The trainee is happy. The stakeholders, the L&D team are happy. Gets great feedback. But then the learners are not able to do their job properly. They end up bench time, shadow time, learning on the job. We felt there's something fundamentally wrong in the way that the whole design of the learning has happened. And maybe it worked for the last 25 years because most of the requirements were given from customers. Here is what I want. You guys build the software. And that situation has dramatically changed ever since digital transformation started and accelerated. I saw somewhere saying that if there is a multiple choice questions, I think in the introduction from CIS session only, it says COVID is a key reason for the digital transformation. So, given that I will tell you what software you need to write, and you write the software to a mindset of what problems can you solve for me? How can you help me get some disruptive solutions? And what can you do to change and improve on what I'm doing? So the ball is shifted, the code from the side of the customer defining software requirements, specifications, and the IT team writing the software, to be able to take a customer problem, reimagine that environment, and redesign a solution that creates a superior user experience and gets the consumers to hook onto this platform. Would it not be nice if I am able to take my phone and, I want to withdraw money. If I go to an app, it shows me, Ram, and the ATM where you want to withdraw money, there is no money, and it's going to take a half an hour wait time. Here is an alternate. Would you want to consider? It may be a 50-meter walk, but it will solve your problem. So the experience, or if I want to, take a taxi or a cab, I just call the security, and the security has a connect with, I'm in an apartment of say 1,000 apartments complex, and the security is able to get a car down under my apartment. I don't need to go to an app myself. So the experience is which drives, what we are trying to do. So in 2015, NIT decided to completely reimagine itself and look at from training, not from imparting training perspective, but from job readiness and job performance perspective. So how can I enable skilling such that the learner is able to do the job required, and we were able to accelerate the experience part of it. So we went and re-looked at the whole design aspect. So just a quick introduction about StackRoot is basically a product engineering startup. We worked with, there are two parts to StackRoot. One is the deep skilling part of it. The other one is where we work with Nandan's team as part of the X-Step organization, building the edutech platform that Nandan takes to Government of India. So that's the, we said now we need to reimagine the whole aspects of how the learning happens. And when we looked at and we started empathizing from multiple angles. So what is causing disruption? If I go around, ask a lot of people, and many of us say, many times I heard people saying that ML, AI, IoT, blockchain, RPA, and all kind of terms were thrown out. But, so we started filtering out and trying to question everything that came on the way and said, what's causing these disruptions? Let's empathize from different angles. So I'm a learner, I'm a student, I'm a software engineer, I'm a IT team professional. And I have been conditioned certain way for the last 15, 20 years as a silo skills. And, I'm very good in what I'm doing. I might be a 5-8 year experienced Java developer. I might be a business analyst. I might be a, quality analyst. I might be a functional project manager or a traditional architect that can, architect the entire typical web application with enterprise RDBMS, building HTTPS-based solutions. So we took a fresh college grad coming out of college and trying to get into software. So we just took the different personas, and started visualizing, empathizing from multiple angles. Let's say what happens from the customer side. Let's start with the customer first. We believe the digital transformation starts with the consumers and the customers. So in IT services, customer is the one who provides the work. In a product and GIC environment, it is the possible consumers that provide, the problem space to work with. So we said that, the fundamental shift from that end is the tap that was giving the requirements is stopping, and it is more of a problem statement. The team is expected to grab and solve that. So that's a big shift, expectations from the consumer and customer front. And from the IT team, the big shift is that, instead of dividing and conquering, like taking a problem and divide it, a labor division like an hardware assembly line, and trying to create a PM, BA, UX, UI guys, front end, back end, network deployment, and database guys, and creating a team of all these people. It worked because in a waterfall approach, the requirements are fairly detailed. But in an environment where problems are thrown, IT teams were putting small teams to solve the problems collaboratively, the customer, small agile teams. That means the small teams necessarily need to be multi-skilled to solve the problem for the customer. So, and empathizing from the IT team perspective, we realizing that the skill for the individuals to be part of the small team need to be more like a full stack, more like ability to work on all aspects of the problem, and ability to work on from taking an idea to deploying it on the clouds. Pretty much all the skills required. And from then empathizing from a technology perspective, it's no longer the type of applications and the type of solutions is no longer a simple request response kind of an architecture. It is more microservices driven, more ontologies were involved, more streams were involved, the kind of databases therefore changes, and a high level of polyglot came into existence, whether it is a language or it is a databases. So then we realizing that this is going to change often. So what is important is, learnability. So how do we bring that element into the skilling aspect? Then we looked at from the individual angle. And, what would truly accelerate empathizing from the individual is not just the tech skills, but also combinations of, engineering, professional, and the core, combining tools and technologies to solve a problem. So the last one alone is of no use if I don't know how to write a clean code, production ready code. It don't know how to handle the review recycle factor, and don't know how to refactor my design and code on short iterations in working in agile TDD, BDD environment. Or in a professional environment where how do I work in a distributed environment like currently in unsupervised distributed environment, but yet be highly productive. So we said that we need to create a program that can, learning product that needs to answer all these questions from the consumer side in terms of problem solving and critical thinking. And from the IT team side, I want a player who can be in a small agile teams. And from the technology ability to learn, and from the individual, a kind of accelerate the experience so then we said that's the only way to do this is to immerse, what happens on the job. So we designed a program that basically replicated, immersed the learner like as if it's a real work environment. First of all, the Git and the engineering environment, CI/CD pipeline has to be real as in a real environment. The kind of problems, the difficulty level of problems has to be similar to what happens in real life. So we sat and we identified the job roles, like a full stack software engineer or specific role holders like that, and then decompose that into a set of competencies and identified what are the key deliberate practices that we should put in, and pre-designed those tough exercises with a platform that can automate the feedback factor back to the learner to provide the feedback back to them. And designed a program. So essentially, this is just we've been fortunate to work with many large enterprises over the last 4 years, 4.5 years at StackRoot. So, we've reimagined the learning, typically not just from a learn and practice perspective, whether it is I'm learning Tamil, Kannada as a language, or I'm learning driving, swimming as a skill, or I'm learning programming language, the pedagogic approach of learning remains the same. Unless somebody points out the mistakes in what I do, and nobody else, and I myself take the pain of correcting the mistake, only then the learning stays. So we reimagine the whole, decompose the architecture of the learning and split this and started focusing on review refactor cycle. Unlike a typical training, which just introduces, if I can, watch video and learn, I would be Virat Kohli, replacing him for the second, third, fourth test in Australia. So definitely learning is a tough process, learning a tough individual transformation process. And, there is no shortcut to it unless and until I learn from correcting my mistakes. So we reimagined the whole process to be able to drive deep skilling in such that we are able to help people point out the mistakes, throw tough problems at them, watch them solve the problem, provide the feedbacks at the right point of time, and they will sail through and we can accelerate their career. That's a summary of the lessons at StackRoot, reimagined by NIT 5 years back.
Thank you so much, Ram. Again, an inspirational story. So I have a question for to start with Karthik, and then immediately after that to Ram. The same question, really, Karthik. So in a company such as Autodesk, which is especially in the manufacturing, is what we spoke about.
Yeah.
So it is driven by efficiency and mass production. In a manufacturing setup, that's the mindsets you end up seeing quite a lot. Now, when you introduced design as a strategic tool, how as a culture now you needed a cultural change. So can you share one or two quick learnings on how did you do that? How good or bad it was, especially because a lot of MSM who are going to benefit and who are part of the CII. So I think they can take a thing or two from that.
Yeah, sure, Sudhindra. That's a very good, fantastic question, which I'm often asked. When it comes to the value mindset one needs to have, a subjective is very subjective. So, for example, if both of us are looking at a design product, say, for example, a car, the way you look at a BMW and the way I look at it might entirely be different. But having said that, though it is very subjective, I think when it comes to a digital journey, I think everybody needs to have a plan, and that is what we intend to provide for companies. You need to have certain key capabilities, and those capabilities are revolving around the topics which I spoke about: mass customization, customer experience. And coming to the productivity part, I would say in India, most of the time we try to look at productivity only from the prism of risk and cost, but rather I think we should look at it from product value standpoint. I would say rather than a fixed product value for a particular product, we have to look at the lifetime value from the product that the company is producing, and is it sustainable in the entire journey? So there are different elements to it. So I would say if you look at it rather than a fixed product value, look at the lifetime value that you are trying to generate in the product that you are producing. I think then it answers the question of having an efficient productivity process.
Okay, thank you, Karthik, for touching upon the productivity as well. Just quickly moving on to Ram. So when you reimagine the whole learning experience, it is, again, I can imagine it's not going to be very easy if that is not what is going on forever. So to introduce a new way of working in this organization, it requires a cultural change. So same question to you. How did you manage it? What were the challenges? What were the techniques you guys used to bring in the cultural change?
Sure. It's a tough question. I think what the organization, especially from 1981, it's going on, and the ability to re-question itself. So first, we created a separate team under the chief strategic officer. Working with Uday Singh as our CSO. Working directly as part of a CEO's initiative. It is a separate organization that was defined with a clean, clear, blank board of a charter saying that you do whatever, and you're given complete rights. You can go and disrupt whatever you want in any form and shape that you can do. And I think so, therefore, when we looked at all this design principles, and we said, first, practitioners need to design the programs. Practitioners need to be involved in deliberate practices, embedding. If I'm running a race, the hurdles, as a software engineer, I'm running a race and there are hurdles put up. Those hurdles has to be designed by practitioners in terms of the height, size, width, difficulty level, and all of it. And then we invest in a platform that can watch the learner run through and provide the feedback back. So I think that's the freedom, ability to question anything, and the freedom to take and build up what is required.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Ram. That is well articulated. Moving on to Jay, and specifically, because of his experience, even in the venture capital, one of those designers who has his hands on money and the venture funds. So to him, I have a question. So which is around, the question is on chat as well. The business leaders, they have done their job, they've invested in product design, but some of those have clicked like never before. You see a lot of examples around. I don't want to name them. Amazing results, skyrocketed their revenues and profitability, and attitudes at many levels for some people. But also some of them have not been able to do the same kind of dent. Now, the intent has been the same. The investments probably have been the same. So, do you want to comment on that, Jay? What do you think are the reasons?
Sure, I think interesting question, definitely, Sudhindra. And I think what you nicely said was this whole idea around similar intents and similar investments. And I think what really happens is that these things are happening in context. So the same thing in a different context may produce very different results. And I think that's very, very important. I think in this case, firstly, organizations should practice the 5 whys to understand, to deconstruct either why something is working and not working. But if I were to sort of take a guess on a key and clear sort of reason why things fail or succeed, there are 2 parts to it. One part is really a connect with the end customer. It's understanding who is that customer, what is the value for that customer mean, and how am I providing value? That's the other part of it. The second part is culture and organization culture, and that culture is it geared to provide that value? So, for example, something that your organization's core competence isn't geared up to do, you might want to provide that. You think this is the next big thing, the hottest thing. And you would realize that's still not going to be the thing because your core DNA, your competence, your culture doesn't support that. So don't go against your grain. Like, for example, someone like an Adobe or an IBM or any of these companies, they are good at a bunch of things, but they also know what they are not good at. And they don't go doing that. I think that's very, very important to know. And of course, as I said, the first thing really is about value. What value are you providing to the user? I think that probably is the one. So when I was in the VC world, I kind of spoke to over 130 founding teams. And one of the biggest issues I saw with all these founding teams, it was not the intent, it was not their hard work. They were happy to work hard, they were happy to put in long hours. But the fact is they did not really understand product market fit very well. And this is about value, essentially. What value am I providing to the user? Why should she or he buy from me and not from someone else? I think that's the one which you and user research, ethnographic studies, just kind of talking to people can help you so much in that. Yeah, hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. The follow-up will be, how do you create that culture? But I'll come to that in just a minute. I also want to check with Manish on the question that was asked from the, from an audience. What you went through the digital transformation, Manish, in Kotak Mahindra Bank, and you did a lot of digital transformation work there. So can you share how did you increase the productivity of resources assigned? Now that you have to understand, probably the way I understand is not all the time they're going to be super productive. There are unknowns in the digital transformation initiative. You're trying to figure out because there's a lot of discovery there as well. But how do you make sure everybody is super productive during that transition phase? Is probably the question. Would you be able to take that up, Manish?
Okay, I'll take a shot on it. I still fully understood the question. my take will be three things. See, what we realize in the bank when it comes to things like digital or design, don't say that is our main strategy. It's important for us to know what is the strategy and see how does digital and design help us to execute the strategy. Different organizations worldwide can have a different strategy, right? When you talk about anyway, whether Apple or Microsoft or Alphabet, right? All are trillion-dollar kind of companies, right? But they have very different approach towards their strategy, their design, their customers, right? Same way for most organizations, it's important to know what is strategy. It's important. Strategy is to say acquire customer mass at a very low cost. Is your strategy is go to the mass market and at a very low cost acquire customers? Is it about going to affluent or ultra HNIs, right, and sell the product to them, right? So is your important? Are you making a supermarket where you will sell multiple products? Or are you going deep into one use case? I feel it's one important thing is to know what is your strategy and build design and your digital around it. Second thing is, I think what I have learned last my .com days to now also, I think is if you have great design and well digital, it sometimes helps you build win-win-win situation. What are you doing? Is it good for the stakeholders, customers, and for organizations? I think you touched a very right point. So there are EX part, right? I think a lot of time when I have seen being that, a lot of people miss that part. If it's something is not going to work, doesn't make sense for the employees, for all sales partners, your backend partners, right? In the end, it will not work. I feel digital a lot of time allows you to do that kind of approach. So in Kotak, one thing we did it, we had not tried to get digital as a silo. We are saying we have to make the whole bank digital, right? Now, being bank digital means own every employee, every process, and say how can digital help them. For example, while I can do sales online, I can sell a credit card online. I may have a whole say army who's selling credit card, right? How can I help them to sell credit card better? Can I use my design thinking, my product innovation, my digitization, my digital in that approach also, right? So I think that becomes one important that, as you rightly said, think of the employee also equally. How can I make their life easy? Instead of making a cool digital application, can I make my sales guy a cool guy? Can I make him a smarter sales guy? Right? I feel that is something we're done because it is a build win-win-win. I think that has started to increase people's productivity. Traditional channels don't think the digital is coming and taking another job. It is becoming augmenting that. It is helping them to achieve their own work in a better way, right? Same way, if I risk team or compliance team sometimes have a perceived issue with digital. If I work with them together, how can I have a win-win approach where a digital solution not only reduces the cost, increases convenience, but also reduces the risk, right? So with this kind of approach, we have seen that the productivity goes up. Employees are more engaged. In fact, they see that all these tools are helping them to achieve better. And as I told you, a lot of earlier days, design was something people couldn't relate, right? But today, if I make a great-looking form, great-looking app, great-looking branch front page, right? It is my sales guy, my branches who are getting a customer's good points, positive words, which motivates them also saying that they get a more sense of proud, more sense of ownership, saying that I represent an organization which is believing in the way I work, what helps customer, right? And it improves. Hope it's my shot. Hope I answered the question which was coming from the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharing that, Manish, we are almost at the closing time. But before we close, firstly, thanks so much for all the panelists. I want to share a few thoughts before we call it a day on this panel, very enriching panel discussion, which was, but also brought in various different perspectives. So what I learned and what I got from this conversation was a couple of things, right? The digital transformation, when we say digital transformation, what I realize and what I'm sure a lot of us are taking away is that it is about true transformation of an organization. It's not about one channel and then change that particular channel and do something. It's actually a true transformation from within. Now, digital is the vehicle that makes that transformation happen. That's one of the things I'm hearing quite a lot. The second one is, of course, the the change in culture and strategy that is needed to make that happen, which means the leadership at any place needs to have the rigor and the vision to make that happen as well, to be able to let go of what has not worked before, so that you can bring in that culture, the fertile ground, so you can plant those seeds for that true transformation to happen. And also thinking strategically. If you're looking for very quick profits just because your competitor has done the same digital transformation, probably you're missing the point. It's about strategically thinking and changing the game. So we heard that those kind of stories from all of you, and I made a few notes on the takeaways that I had, and I hope the audience here will resonate with it and take away as well. Uh, the important point we saw earlier on is the fact that when we say a digital transformation or customer experience, we are really talking about enterprise experience. Are we ready to take a call to change the enterprise? That is something that came about in the digital strategy template that Karthik shared with us. We heard the iterative process in the traditional manufacturing setup through the use of data, which was probably not, I have never heard, a manufacturing change today. And that's a great story of how the process can be done even in manufacturing in a heavy duty sort of industry. And I hope the MSMEs who are listening to this, CII has a very good connect with them. So I hope you take away and take the advantage of having Autodesk with us, ask them questions, use the digital strategy template, and change the game that you are in as well. In terms of banking, we heard the great customer experiences is now ubiquitous. As a middle class man myself, I can tell you that yes, my expectations have changed in terms of how I look at various experiences. What was premium before is something that you expect every day. So, which is the takeaway I got from listening to Manish. And Ram spoke to us about learning as an experiential thing, and not as one of the things that you will do when you have some time. So learning as a job to be done or a problem to be solved. That's the way he put it. Reimagining the processes so you can bring in deep skilling for people. And part Ram, Jay shared his stories around the Arogya Setu app, which of course all of us are familiar with, and the way we played a role in during the pandemic. Embrace uncertainty is what stayed with me, because uncertainty is going to be more now than ever before. So the COVID probably will go away. The coronavirus problem will go away, but the uncertainty, the new normal, is not going to go away. So how do we, get ready for it? And that's where one of the things I was thinking was how design can actually bring order into even such a chaotic situation, such as a pandemic. Even there, design is the one that can provide order into that chaos. So it was great to hear that story of how that is done. And finally, the one of the last ones, but an important one, to keep embracing small wins, to keep taking small wins from small empowered teams, which are given clear goals towards clear strategic goals. When you give those goals and give them the complete freedom and empowerment, and those wins, those small wins, is what will bring in the cultural and strategic change, is what I took away from this very enriching conversations. I'm sure a lot of us in the audience have taken away their own insights as well. And please feel free to reach out to any one of us at any time. We are generally available on the behalf of the panelists. I'm sharing, we are available on LinkedIn. We're quite actually accessible these days, much more than ever before. So feel free to reach out. And thanks for listening in. Thanks a ton to all the panelists for your fantastic observations, insights, and learnings, sharing with that with the audience. And thank you, audience, for being with us today. Over to you, CII organizers.